Reverend Udell. I'm glad you're with us today. We're in Vermont, and it's a snowy, cold day, and but there's no blizzard really. It's just cold and snow on the ground. And we're glad that you tuned us in. We have a.
Sorry, having some trouble hearing you, Lee. I don't know what's up with your microphone. Just a second. Keep talking. We can hear you a little bit.
Okay. We don't have a big commercial outfit here. In some places. Which means we have to punt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the fun of it is that Bill knows this stuff very well. He's able to meet the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very welcoming. And he helps us to put the show together. So it's very neat. Now, I want you to know that our program is unique in that it wants your input as well as for you to hear our input.
Mm-hmm.
So you're to phone in to the program and say what you think about what you heard. Your questions, your answers, your bitches, your joys. All that's done by the telephone. And, now, we are also set up so that you can have input to us, even if you're listening to this program as from an outside source. In other words, if you're not hearing us on a special TV show.
You're fine now.
I'm sorry?
You're all set now. Everything's fixed.
Well,
We can hear you fine now.
okay, good. What Bill is in part is suggesting is that if you miss the chance to say something to us, to talk to you or to me, you can send us by email your own message, your own comments, your own thoughts, and then you just give in your by email your address, and we'll get back to you at that address and tell you what we think, and what we hope, and what we believe. So it's a real camaraderie situation here, where we support each other. And Bill is an employee of this program, as I am as well. But I don't get paid. He gets paid, but I don't. And that's all right with me. But we do want to get your input. And it's a rare chance where you can phone the studio and say what you want to say, and know that they'll listen to you and even broadcast what you have to say. So it's a unique situation. Now, if you have something that you want to communicate, you just call our number, and we'll listen to you, and then put you on the air live as soon as we hear what you have to say and we like it. It's a unique situation. So do you have any question about how to do this?
I don't.
Okay. We really are lonesome and hungry for your input, your words. What's his name? The musician who wrote when you get older, you sometimes forget what you're trying to say. that's happened to me like it does to most people. We picked this opportunity for you to give us your input, and we'd like to hear what you think about the program, the ideas that you hear, and your suggestions about the future. We're not sponsored by a church or by an organization, but by a community access media. In other words, where we have others who want to hear what you have to say, and they are focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you all a chance to hear our guest. She hasn't said very much of anything yet. It's been more me. So it's Stampul, and she's going to talk about ministry and younger people, not just here in Vermont, but I guess elsewhere. So, and what you have to do with ministry. So why don't you start, run where you want to go.
All right. Well, thank you, Lee, and thank you for having me on today. I've been in youth pastoring for about 10 years, and although I'm fairly new to Vermont, in the last half year we've started building a regional youth ministry program, kind of the greater Burlington area, kind of throughout Chittenden County. And at the moment we're housed at Ascension Lutheran Church. This is where the whole idea of Ripple has really begun and emerged.
Why don't you tell them what Ripple is?
Ripple is, it's a regional...
It's not a new kind of ice cream.
It's not ice cream. It's a regional ecumenical youth ministry program. The name Ripple comes from the idea that about truly making ripples in the world, that if you have an action, you know, and you drop a stone into a lake, there's a ripple effect from that. And so the line that has really inspired this is that we never know quite how one small action that we do might ripple out and change the world, if that action is inspired by love to bring about peace. And so the idea is to inspire young people to take actions, to do small things in the world, to do big things in the world, and to really watch that ripple effect happen. Give them the opportunity to uncover some of the things that they're really passionate about, and help them through a lens of faith understand what that might mean for them, what that means throughout faith communities, and how they can think about that in terms of their purpose and their calling.
How does the rest of the religious world respond to the ripple effect? Do they like it?
I've gotten wonderful responses from a number of different churches in the area. I've probably been in touch with about 30 different churches in Chittenden County, many of which have also come back to me with some excitement and hopes for where this might go and how their young people might tap into it and how their churches might support it. So it's been very, very exciting. Really enjoyed the process. For me, this is precisely what I want to be doing, so it's truly been joyful.
The bureaucracy, the church leaders, the archbishops and the cardinals and the ministerial leaders, are they happy about it too?
Well, I haven't had much interaction with the hierarchy of the church beyond the pastors, beyond local pastors. Many of which are actually Congregationalists anyway, and don't have that hierarchy, or in the same sense anyway, in terms of bishops and cardinals. But I think within the other denominations that we're working with, there seems to be support, a groundswell of support all the way around.
Well, it's good to hear. You wonder, how people will respond.
Mhm. Mhm. It's been, and I have to say, the denominations and the churches that we've had an ongoing conversation with have predominantly been the smaller mainstream churches, and that has, I think, helped because we all have so many close ties to one another. We're all speaking essentially the same theological language. We tend to be very much social justice oriented, and that has helped tie that common thread together. And so there's been a lot of excitement about the young people and participating in something larger, bringing together a number of kids from a number of different places and see what we can really create.
That's neat.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And how about the hierarchy? Do they express delight about what you're doing?
I know within the Lutheran Church, where I'm serving at Ascension Lutheran Church in South Burlington right now, there has been support from the synod level, and I believe that the same tends to be true within some of the other denominations. Like I said, I haven't had a tremendous amount of contact with those in the hierarchy, but certainly on the local level, there's a lot of excitement. I haven't come up against anybody who has really, voiced any strong opposition to their church being participating in terms of the ecumenical nature of it at all.
Martin Luther did not enjoy input from everyone. Mm-hmm. That's sometimes forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
That there has been an attitude that he liked all kinds of input, but it's not so. He liked input that was favorable to what he had to say and think, but not to everything.
He sounds rather human.
I think he was very human.
I don't know if any of us really appreciate all of the potential input. But in terms of this, I've had very positive responses.
Oh, good, good.
One of the things that, as we're getting started, the whole fall has really been in the planning process. But we're actually going to have our kickoff. We're launching our youth group, and let me explain a little bit more about kind of what Ripple will be.
Please.
It's a regional youth ministry program. There are kind of two different parts of it, two different components. One is a regular youth group meeting. We'll be meeting on the first and third Tuesdays of each month from 6:30 until 9 o'clock.
Wow.
It's for 6th graders all the way up through 12th graders. We bring them together in the beginning, for games and for large group presentations, and then we split them into more age-appropriate small groups for further discussion, so that our 6th graders aren't necessarily discussing and interacting with our upperclassmen. We separate them so they can really engage on their level. So twice a month we'll have youth group. In between, we have planning meetings. We have a leadership team composed of both youth and adults. The youth are being in the process of being trained as peer ministers, so that they can help lead the group. And they've been very instrumental in planning topics that we have. We have a variety of topics through the rest of the year, and I can talk more about kind of how some of that came about. But so we meet on the first and third Tuesday for youth group. We meet on the second and fourth Thursdays for planning, and then we have some special events as well. Then the second part of it, outside of youth group, is we'll be doing service learning opportunities, where young people will come together to accomplish some sort of a task in the community, hands-on, that they've had the opportunity truly to serve, and really learn about the impact of that service. The first one is our 30-hour fast for the hungry, which is in the end of March, which we're encouraging churches that, even if they don't participate in our regular youth group meetings, can come and be a part of and really experience that. So that's the basic construct. Other service learning opportunities might be some, local things that we show up to, like a walk in the community that raises funds for something. We're hoping it will include a mission that we actually leave the area. We're talking about possibly going to New York City over the summer for a week to do some service down there and find more about how that interacts with us, how it interacts with our faith, giving the young people truly the opportunity to be immersed for a little while in service. And so I'd say that's the broad picture of what Ripple is becoming in terms of the construct, the infrastructure of what we will be. And a number of different churches have already given support in terms of making sure that they want their youth to come and be a part of it, financial support as well, because we're still in the process of raising funds for the full program. And but it's been very exciting, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, when you get down to the money situation, that's it tells you a lot whether there is financial support from the institution or not.
Right.
If they just are enthusiastic and mildly encouraging,
Mm-hmm.
that's very different than if they are raising money for you
Mm-hmm.
and giving you the money.
Right. It's true. It's true. But only in the last couple of weeks have we really opened it up and said, we're now ready to start receiving funds, and we've already had some churches who've stepped forward and said, yes, no, this is something we're going to financially support as well. And so that ball has just started rolling, and I'm looking forward to that continuation. It's been very, very exciting, and the momentum is really picking up on all fronts. Can I tell you a little bit about how some of the planning process?
Please.
We started in after pulling together churches and talking about kind of some of what it was, we started pulling together our leadership team. And at I think our first leadership team meeting, I brought up the topic that's really going to be our core that everything else will kind of launch out of. And that core for us, the core motivation for our program is the concept of peace, of spreading peace, of bringing peace within ourselves, within our families, within other relationships around us, within the community, and then to the broader world.
International political peace, or
truly the whole thing, from internal all the way out to the other side of the planet, where we'll look at different things that are happening and how can we promote a positive influence. How can we make a little action that might ripple out and make a change somewhere else? And so taking that concept of peace, we really started by just brainstorming different ways and this brainstorming included the young people and the adults who were present, different ways that young people can have an impact for peace within the broader world, how we can study it and what that will do for us, and how that when we are peaceful ourselves, how that will go forward, how that ripple of peace will continue. And so we picked by sort of a brainstorming and then voting on different topics. We picked a number of different topics that we're going to cover in our youth group meetings. Everything from personal prayer and meditation to how to manage peaceful relationships with your parents or your siblings. To global, environmental sustainability, and talking about how one of our topics will be talking about sustainable environmental practices and how that's important to our faith, how caring for our creation is also caring for one another, and how bringing about that peace is important to who we are as a people of faith. And so we really have a variety of different topics that cover all these different facets of it. So we really try to bring in all the different angles. As for me, I truly believe that it must be a holistic approach to both ministering to the young person who's present, and that includes helping them minister to others. Because if you focus only in and don't give them the opportunity to focus back out again, we miss something. And so we're really trying to cover that in its entirety.
Ambitious.
What's that?
You're ambitious.
I probably am. That's probably true. This is the sort of thing that very much excites me. So it's delightful to be able to play with it, because it's a joyful play for me. The creation of this, and it's an expression of who I am also in the world.
There are different groups out there in the environment, and I guess there's a question: when do you encourage people to function and work hard in one group or in another group? What group seems to fit best for you?
Mm-hmm. In terms of
your interests, your abilities, your history.
Groups. What kind of groups do you mean?
Well, political groups, voting groups.
You mean in terms of like my political persuasions, or?
Well, yes and no. What I'm trying to say is, do you encourage some of the people in your organization to come only if they are interested in voting registration and getting people to vote in the election? Or are you interested more in getting, people voting when there has been very little interest in voting before in your area? What is it that turns you on? I mean, in some communities, what turns people on is to get the black and people and the people from different political walks of life to vote. Their parents have never voted before. So then they come out and say what they think, even though there's a risk at losing their job, or people might turn away from them. How do you work with those people? How do you get them to come and join you?
Well, I suppose there are a few different ways that I could address that. On the one hand, I wouldn't consider this really by any stretch a political organization, or even with political ties of any nature. On the other hand, I do believe that it is immensely important for people of faith to understand that their politics is and must be informed by the way they understand their faith, by the way they understand that vote has impact on more than just one's own personal interests, and how that is expressed as a person of faith in the world. And so those types of questions would come up. The questions of sacrifice would come up. What does it mean to take a stand for something in the world and be willing to accept the repercussions because you know this is what is right? So these topics would come up. And when you ask the question, what really gets me going, and there are a number of different things. I would say at the core of that, for me, I get very excited about the idea of helping young people figure out what it is they really want to do, and empowering them to do it. In this construct of peace, and I can explain a little bit more about where that came from as well.
Why don't you?
It's interesting. There are so many different ways to think about even just Christian theology, and there are so many different so many different places to land on the theological spectrum. I know that for some, the core purpose of a person of faith is to save souls, and by that it is a matter of conversion.
Mm-hmm.
For others, there's so many different places, and salvation seems to play into that construct. For me, I believe that that salvation, well, for one thing, means many different things. One of which, in terms of an afterlife, is I tend towards universalism. I tend to believe, and there are so many different ways of understanding that one way or another God will save us all. And the afterlife is something that, as a soul is nurtured, we will find grace. So saving souls would not be my primary intention. I believe that Christ did that work. Instead, as a person of faith, I believe my core purpose and our purpose as people of faith is truly to bring about the peaceable kingdom here. And how does that happen? So, and this evolved from a discussion we had early in the fall, as well as watching some of my theological ideas start to resonate. But that's where the core concept of peace came from. It's the idea that what is our primary purpose here? For me, that understanding is to create a better world. It's to give people the opportunity to truly live and to know joy, to know peace, to know purpose. And that goes for us as humans, that goes beyond that as well. It's taking care of the creation in its entirety, and really understanding peace is something that's pervasive. I don't know if I've explained that well, but
To some degree. I had some fundamentalist contacts for some years, and from their point of view, that Jesus came into the world to save people from eternal damnation. And that's why he came. It wasn't to give us a happier life or a job or a better marriage or anything like that, but instead to save us from eternal damnation. Where are you from that point of view?
Well, I certainly would not believe that was a sole purpose. Sometimes I'm not entirely sure that was the purpose or a purpose. Perhaps. But I think I would say that Jesus truly came to teach us how to live more than how, I always say how to die, but I think that actually is indeed part of it. Part of how to die is part of how we live. It's hard for me to believe that there is, that there would be only one purpose that for Jesus as he walked the planet. And I think the teaching is the most important purpose. The role modeling was the most important purpose, the life spent. The death on the cross was also, I think, instrumental in teaching us how to be, as I said before, how to die, perhaps. Is there salvation in that? Well, I think there very well may be. I confess that I am still in a place of uncertainty when it comes to that, and what that precisely means. I think it is very much a mystery and something certainly beyond our full comprehension.
So there's room for for brainstorming and questioning and doubting and believing?
You know, there is. I continue to. I'm sure yours theological, wrestling continues. I don't think it's something we can say stops, because then it is no longer a living and breathing thing itself. I think one of the best things that can happen to a person is to go through a period of time of severe and intense doubt. It gives us the opportunity to figure out, what do we truly believe. I am personally still wrestling with the full significance of the cross. I will probably be wrestling with that to my death day, is my expectation. I think people who can package that neatly and put it into a few sentences, it makes me very nervous.
They're pretty naive.
Possibly naive. I think naive might be the best of possibilities there. Sometimes I'm not sure it's naivety as much as it's a place of safety, I think, if you can summarize it into a paragraph, what you believe. I've never been able to do that. My faith has never been that safe, and in that, for me, it's been a gift. There's so much more to it, and it continues to evolve, and as new information comes in, it continues to grow and it continues to morph.
I like your approach. You're honest about all else.
Probably to a fault.
Well, I don't know about that.
I had a professor who once gave us a quote along the lines of, about 20% of what I believe is almost certainly wrong. I'm just not sure which 20% that is. I think for me, the percentage is probably much higher. I'm just not sure which 20% it is that isn't accurate. I'm human, and I'm going based upon the information that I have at my disposal. I like the Methodist system of theology, which combines and balances scripture, tradition, reason, and experience. I've found that to be a draw for as long as I've understood that and known it. And when you combine all four, it doesn't leave room for certainty, perhaps, but it does leave room for tremendous growth. And I think that's more important than certainty.
That's helpful.
I hope so. Certainty is much safer.
Well, I was brought up a Methodist, so
Okay.
so it's not a foreign question for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a lot of experience as a fundamentalist and fundamentalist circles, and and then with a liberal perspective, where you raise the question, one raises the question, why did Jesus come into this world? Was it just to keep us from going to hell, or was it for some other reason?
Mm-hmm. Well, at Christmas time, in 2 days we celebrate the birth of Jesus, which in and of itself has so much controversy around it.
Right.
And it's possible. And people have argued this, that one of the principal purposes for Jesus coming, if you believe that Jesus is God incarnate, which is the Emmanuel, God with us, that this was an opportunity for God to experience what it was like to be one of us. And I'm very drawn to that idea. The
You
thought,
like that?
I really am. The thought that our Creator, who spins these the planets, who from the Big Bang through guided evolution, which is my construct for creation, wanted to know what it was like to be a human. What does it feel like to be in this skin, in this world, and interacting, to be in love from the mother-child relationship that we see the Madonna and Child at Christmas time so much, to the love of friend, of disciple, and possibly, some say, beyond that. We don't know where Jesus is, where fully he walked, if he ever fell in love. Perhaps he did. Perhaps God just wanted to know what it was like to be human. And perhaps in Jesus that was the opportunity, or at least an opportunity. I wouldn't begin to state any certainty, but I love the thought of it. I'm drawn to it. I'm drawn to the idea that this immense creator wanted to know us that intimately.
He wanted to enter into our space, and yet to be more than just in our space.
Right. Right. I have an icon at home that I got from the Taizé community in France.
Sure.
And it's the icon that hangs in that sanctuary in the Church of Reconciliation of the Mother Mary and Infant Jesus. And it has spoken to me in this sense. I've seen the Madonna and Child in so many different artistic portraits before, and sometimes you have this regal infant sitting on the knee of the Madonna, and I always find that a little scary, intimidating. Well, this one, it's clearly a child looking into the mother's eyes, and his little hand is wrapped around her neck, and you can see the fingers coming out the other side they're literally just wrapped around her neck in this embrace. And the idea that God wanted to be that close, to be as in love with a human mother as I have two daughters, as my daughters have loved me and I have loved them, to have that close and intimate a relationship with another human. I find it to be a beautiful expression of divinity. Even if it were only a metaphor, I would find it to be a beautiful expression of divinity. I happen to believe it's more than just a metaphor.
Well, it's kind of weird if you just look up at the heavens at night and you just sort of say, all of this is just there to boggle our minds.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't a relationship between God and us, and he's showing us the way he feels about us. It's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very hard to systematize it.
It is. And systematizing, I remember back to my systematic theology. It seems so awkward. It's so awkwardly human. An attempt to say, this is what we believe, this is why, and this is how. Now, we keep continuing to do that.
Say that again?
We continue to do that. We keep trying to systematize our faith. But it must, at some level, be viewed by the Creator as, you watch a small child trying to figure out how to walk or figure out how to talk. It's an attempt at something that we will never perfect. An important attempt, but still so awkward. The mystery is just so pervasive, and the poetic nature of it is so much greater than any systematic theologian could possibly encapsulate.
That's true. The mind is boggled by all of this.
That's part of the joy of it.
Hmm?
That's part of the joy of it, I think. Yeah.
Well, there is a part of us that wants to own the Creator, and to have the Creator to be a projector, projectile of our own faith. And you can't do that.
Right. It's true. And yet it's what we've done. I think it's what we have been. I think we can easily accuse ourselves over our very long tradition of having done precisely that. Time after time after time is saying, oh, this is who we are, so that's who God must be. And we continue to do it. I do it. You know, and when I think in terms of salvation, and I hear a fundamentalist say, you know, only those who've accepted Jesus in this particular manner can be saved, I project me onto God, saying, God can't possibly be less merciful than I am. Well, I'm not entirely sure that's fair either. It's still a projection.
I see you've done a lot of hard thinking.
Oh, yes. No,
Well, who do you talk with?
Anybody who'll talk to me.
Well, I admire you that you really are scratching your head and coming up with difficult questions. You're not just trying to get somebody to repeat after you what you believe.
Oh heavens, I'd be terrified if somebody simply repeated after me what I believed, because I don't know what I believe half the time. I want them to think it through.
But you can't tell that to your church's committee on ordination. They don't like that.
Did I mention that I've been in the ordination process for 10 years?
No.
This might have something to do with it.
I can see why.
I've even wrestled with the theology of ordination. I have a hard time being in anybody's box, and I certainly wouldn't want somebody to try to jump in mine, because my box is a little too free-form.
Right, but you want to make a commitment. That's something else.
It's true. I have core beliefs that I continue to hold on to, but I have always needed to be able to fully question so that I could come to them and they could be firm and foundational. As I said before, I don't think doubt is a bad thing. I even think the committee, you know, for ordination, whichever denomination somebody's in, well, that might be spreading it too thin. Many of the denominations, at the very least, that I am interacting with, even on the committee, I think there's an understanding that we are all wrestling at some level, and we are all trying to, I hope, honestly discover who and what we are and who we are in relationship to this divinity that is so much beyond our possible comprehension. And if I can't wrestle honestly, well, then what's the point? Really.
I like your honesty. I would imagine that there are some people who are thinking of becoming ordained who are resisting it because they don't want to become rigid and trite and what's the word? Simplistic, maybe.
Sure.
And so they hear you talking today, and they feel much better because they say you can have a faith, and yet you can have this point of view.
I hope that is a possible potential out there. I also have a feeling that there would be others who would hear it, and sometimes my theological outlook can rattle comfortable faith backgrounds. And depending upon who I meet, depending on who I talk with, I attempt to be as sensitive to that as possible. Because I do believe that faith needs to be rattled at some level for it to be authentic, for it to have been defined by the person who's living it, rather than defined by somebody imposing it upon them. But like I said, it is safe to be within a well-defined doctrine. And it's comfortable to be there. And so I attempt to be very careful and sometimes very gentle with people who would find it very disturbing to be rattled all in one place, all at one time. Sometimes it calls for comfortable questioning to call them beyond that.
Well, if you think about what Jesus had to say to the scribes and the Pharisees, he said, those of you without sin, you throw the first stone. And he said, I and the Father are one. It's pretty heavy stuff. What does that mean? So he didn't run away from hard statements.
It's true. It's also, and I would say one of the truths about his ministry is the ones he called onto the carpet, the loudest and the strongest, were those who had power.
Yeah.
Who had the institutional power of the religion that held sway over the people that Jesus was interacting with. And yes, in that case, perhaps one doesn't go gently. But when it is with someone who does not have that power, I think Jesus' example is a very, very gentle spirit. One who was much more prone to love and to healing than to tearing down untruths. When it came to those who needed the healing, when it came to those in authority, it was different. There were not two different personalities of Jesus, just a knowledge within him of when and where you act, in which dimension, how do you do it, who do you speak to in what way. I think that's simply a matter of understanding how people work and what people are ready for and what people truly need. It wouldn't be fair to somebody who is in power to be too gentle with them. They wouldn't likely learn. They might be able to ignore it.
I like your honesty. You're speaking about what you believe and what you do not believe.
Yeah.
And you don't hide from the fact that it's necessary to take a position. You can't just ignore positions. You just can't be without belief.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you work that together? There's no easy way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it comes out of your own personal struggle. Is how you find the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting to hear the public phoning in. No one's phoned in yet for you. Hello, you out there? You have anything to say? Any questions? Any issues that you are struggling with that you want to address with our guest? This is your opportunity. The phone is very quiet. Doesn't have to be that way.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? So we have 5 minutes in which to answer that question of mine.
Which question?
What are your thoughts about what Jesus had to say? What do you think about his attitude, his theology, his belief system, his public attitude?
In 5 minutes or less?
Hmm?
In 5 minutes or less?
Yeah. Well, now here's your opportunity. You can ask Jesus a question. What would you like to ask him?
I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Good gracious, I don't know if I could narrow it down to one or two.
Well, you can begin.
I'd like to have a whole full conversation. I would like to know
Hmm.
the truth about God's purpose for our souls.
Why did he create us and make us? From the flesh of the earth?
In part, yeah. In part, that is part of it. As well as after this life, what is in store for our souls? I'd like to know. I don't know if it's something that I'll ever, I'm sure. How could I know in this lifetime without a, sometimes I think, just to have a direct conversation. I would like to know. And there are so many, I've heard so many answers to that question in so many different ways.
Say again the question, please.
I would like, my question, I guess, my question would be what is, what was, what will be the purpose of our human souls?
What is the purpose?
Yeah.
Why did God make us?
Why did God make us? What will God do with us after this life? Will we come back? Will we go forward? Now, I believe in the concept of a heaven. I particularly love what both C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien have done with their theology and wrapped it into their mythologies. But I would like to know, rather than simply go on blind faith. I've never been comfortable with blind faith. And there's no experience that I can rely upon this side of death to know some of those answers. So yes, if I could sit down with Jesus, I think that would be my first question.
What's your first question?
What is the purpose
Of my
and
creation?
ultimate trajectory of our souls?
Well, our time is up. That's our closing music. So phone us in with that question, write us with that question, and see what answers we get.
Thank you.
We enjoyed having you. You have taken us out of the world of the mundane and into the world of the eternal.
Well, it was delightful.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.